Hi all, welcome back to the John Deere B tractor restoration. Just a bit of an update, and as you can see we've got some things put back together. We've got the radiator put back in, as you can see there, possibly. We've got some bodywork back on again. Hopefully we've got the hood on for the last time this time. Everything seems to be holding water now, and no, seems good. We've got the back end put back in, the power lift. So that looks well. It all went back together okay. It's all filled with oil. Some oil on the floor there, but I overfilled the reservoir, and that oil is actually leaking out of the input shaft, or was. It's not now, but so that's that sorted. It all works. I turned it over by hand, and the rock shaft, when you move the pedals here, the rock shaft does turn, and obviously it resets itself and then turns back again, so it lowers. So that works. So that's that. As you can see, we've got a steering wheel fitted, steering shaft, and right at the front here I've got our dial gauge set up to measure the end float on the steering spindle. Now, as you may recall, in many videos ago I did away with the thrust washer design in this area where I'm pointing, and put in a thrust bearing, ball bearing, because, as I say, the B seems to be always a bit on the heavy side with the steering, so I wanted to try a bit of an experiment, and I put a bearing in. Now it seems to work, and certainly when the tractor's sitting with all its weight on that block of wood, it turns quite easily, so I'm hoping for great things with this experiment. But I'm just at the moment wanting to finalise the adjustments of the steering box and all the rest of the worm and sector sections in here. And so one of the things I'm doing is checking the end float. And camera won't focus on that, but that's set at 0. I don't want to focus. So take my word for it, it's set at 0. And then when and that's with all the weight off the spindle. So there's no weight sitting on the spindle at the moment. There's a little bit of movement, and then when I lower it down with the jack, I do that carefully. There we go. It should read. It's reading. Let's see. It's reading 22 thousandths of an inch. So in the manual, in the John Deere manual I have here, not that we can read it really, but it talks of a maximum of 32 thousandths of an inch. So we're well within tolerance there. If it had been out of tolerance, you would have had to have taken this nut off, washer, and taken the sector out, which is sitting on a taper on the top of this shaft. You would have to have taken that sector out, taken out the eccentric bushing that's underneath it, and then put in a shim just to take up the extra little bit of play. Now, to be fair, I can't remember whether I actually did check it when I first put this, because the spindle's been in a while, obviously, and I can't remember whether I actually did do it the last when I put it together. I looked back at some videos the other day, and was no mention of it. So, but anyway, as I say, it's sitting at 22 thou. I'm quite happy at that. That's good. And so that is now, I can button that up now, stick a split pin in here, and the job's, it's okay. One thing, remember, you always use the correct washer that goes in here. It's like a over-centered washer. Make sure you get it so it digs into the top of the sector, and really get that nut tight as you can, because if you don't, you'll find that it does come slack quite quickly, that and the steering will go out of the tolerances will disappear on the steering, and you'll end up with some clunky steering. Now when you've done that, then you set up the worm. Hang on, I'll get a torch, hang on a minute. In the bottom there you can see that thing there, the worm. You set that up, and to set that up you set it up by putting various shims in here between this cover and the housing, and you want to set it up basically so there is no discernible movement on the steering shaft this way or that way. It wants to be just solid, but so it still moves, obviously. So I have actually set this up, so I put shims in. I don't know how many I put in, but I think there's probably a good 1/16 of an inch in there. Maybe not that actually, maybe a 32nd of an inch of shims. Basically they're just paper shims. That's all they are, paper shims. And so yeah, so the steering's all set up. I've put a new, had to put a bush in there, machine a bush. It's quite worn, was that, was this this top housing. But I've had to be quite canny with it because the shaft was only worn in one spot, one place, and therefore I wanted to I needed to make the bush, when I put it in and reamed it out, I needed to make the bush extremely tight over this section, but make it so it was quite slackened, well, so it moved in this. And I think I've got it right. There's no movement whatsoever on it. And oh, better not do that, damage my dial gauge. But yeah, so that's got that there. Now it's obviously to paint at this end. But what I normally do when I've done these in the past is I paint the first, well obviously I paint the whole thing in undercoat, but I'll paint the first 2 feet in gloss with it out. So I will take this back to bits so that it's painted inside, and then when I come to paint the hood, I'll paint the hood with this fitted obviously, and therefore you're not scratching or risking the chance of scratching any of this paint when you're sliding it all back through the hood and the bushing in top of the spindle housing, if that makes sense. So that's where we are with that. I don't know, I'm sure people have done it before, but I don't put, you're meant to put like a gear oil in these. Now the trouble is, as they've got older and older, these tractors, they don't hold oil very well. The spindle has a bit of movement and all the rest of it. So what I do now is I don't use ordinary just axle grease. I put in a grease called liquid grease, and it's much more, it doesn't leak away. It's like, well it is, it's what it says on the tin, it's a liquid grease, and so it just sits there in the top, lubricates the worm and sector, lubricates the 2 little bearings, and it works really well. But the trouble is, if you put straightforward axle grease in, the axle grease doesn't flow very well, and so it tends to eventually, where the 2 gears touch, they do tend to dry out, and then you end up with metal against metal again. So liquid grease, we use it in the balers. It's something that we use in the balers. So yeah, works well. yeah, so I've got the power supply coming to the generator, dynamo generator deal here. I've got it coming down this side of the hood. I think I said in another previous video I wasn't too sure if this was the correct side, but in the end it's the side that I've decided to go with, because I didn't like it going down the other side because it interfered with the choke control, and the wires would have to come across under here to come to the dynamo generator. I mean, in the various books that I have, it suggested it comes either side, but a lot of them tend to put it down, suggest it should go down the other side for correctness. I don't know. If anybody has an opinion on that, by all means, comment, please do. I've got a magneto fitted. It's not fitted timed yet, it's just I've fitted it to so I get my spark plug cables connected and to the right length, so they're all in, ready to go. I just need to time the magneto up. Yeah, so it's coming on. It's coming on a treat now. There's not a lot more to do. I have got a new carburetor, or a decent core anyway, over here on the bench. Let's have a look. So that's the new core. As you recall, in the last one I had the last one had issues altogether. It was damaged in the in this area, and it was damaged in here. So that one's a good one. It just wants a good clean up. Yeah, there's the battery clamp there. We'll not look too closely at the welding. It's a bit thin, that metal, but it's not welded up too badly. Yeah, no, it's alright. So the thing that's holding us up at the moment are these on my wheels. I'll just put one up on there. The problem I have is that, obviously, as I've said in the past, this tractor is on cut-offs, so it would have been originally on steel wheels, and now someone's cut the steel rim off and put a rim on that holds a tyre. But when we got these stripped down and looked cleaned up, and I didn't realise how badly the condition these rims are in. Now they look fairly good, but in fact they are quite thin. They are badly rusted in places in this area, in here. And they're quite buckled as well. Probably picked one of that has a bit of a buckle in there. I'll probably pick one up, but the one up that isn't so bad. Let me have another look. Oh, there we go.